I was introduced to the Pokemon series a lot later than most. The franchise was already in its 4th generation of the games, those being Diamond and Pearl. Not only was this the next generation, but it was the first series of Pokemon games to be released for the Nintendo DS. Expectations were high, and many were interested in what direction the series would take now that it was on Nintendo's newest handheld console. Both games received generally favorable reviews at the time of launch, making use of some of the DS features such as a touchscreen and Wi-Fi connection, a first for the series. Diamond and Pearl were the first games to blend 2D and 3D graphics, something that would be later used for other generations. Like its predecessors, Game Freak released a 3rd version of the game, Pokemon Platinum, which both changed and added content such as a post-game, the Battle Frontier, new legendaries, and adjustments to the story. Pokemon Platinum came out around the time I was interested in the series. I knew about the games and TV show prior to this moment, but seeing all of my friends play the most recent game of the series convinced me to join in on the fun. I still remember the day I got my hands on the game, how excited I was to get home and start playing, and how much of a noob I was. We're talking about 12-year-old me trying to get through Route 217, a path filled with Ice-type Pokemon, with my Torterra and raging at how unfair it was to get one-shot killed by the wild Pokemon. If you have any basic knowledge of the series, you realize just how bad of an idea that is. But it's moments like that which I am most fond of, as it reminds me of the fun I had playing the game, how it led me to play future games such as the Gold and Silver remakes, and my personal favorites, Black and White. Generation 4 is one of the franchise's best-selling series, with a total of 25 million copies sold, right after the 1st and 2nd generations, with their numbers being 45 and 30 million units. These sale numbers are higher than that of Black-White and their sequels combined. It didn't take long for Game Freak to start remaking the older games such as Fire Red Leaf Green, Heart Gold Soul Silver, Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, and Let's Go Pikachu Eevee. Aside from that last one, there was a clear pattern here. The games were being remade generation by generation. People were quick to assume that a remake for Generation 4 was on its way, myself included. It wasn't until February of this year that we finally got the confirmation of remakes, titled Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Fortunately, it looks like these games won't get the Let's Go treatment similar to Kanto, as it appears to be a faithful remake. But maybe it's a little too faithful. The game uses a chibi art style, most likely to fit the sprite design of the originals. And for many people, this is definitely going to be a turnoff. It's by no means revolutionary in terms of graphics. In fact, you can argue that Let's Go did a better job. I'm personally okay with it, but since nostalgia is this game's biggest selling point for me, there's undoubtedly some bias here. There's another remake which came out last year for the Harvest Moon Friends of Mineral Town game, and it too had a chibi art style. At first I strongly disliked it, but after deciding to try out the game, it quickly grew on me. That's one of the reasons I've been very optimistic about these remakes, and I hope we get more news on them later this year. But the question now is, what's next? There's been jokes about Pokemon fans suddenly begging for Generation 5 remakes the day after this announcement, and to be honest, there's more truth to that than you'd think. If anything, the confirmation of Diamond and Pearl remakes has reinforced that pattern already mentioned. So Game Freak will undoubtedly make remakes for Black and White, right? Whether they actually do or not, the purpose of this video is to explain why I believe Brilliant Diamond and Shiny Pearl should be Pokemon's final remake. I'm specifically talking about the mainline series, not spin-offs such as Mystery Dungeon. Still crossing my fingers for an Explorers of Sky remaster. As someone who grew up with Platinum, I was hoping Game Freak would announce a remake of that game. Realistically speaking, that was never going to happen. Because why launch a single game when you can launch two knowing that many will buy both versions, making even more of a profit? It will be nice if they include a Platinum episode in the post-credits similar to Oraz's Delta episode. Pokemon Platinum not only added new features, but also improved the gameplay from Diamond and Pearl. Both were notorious for their slow battles. I recently picked up a copy of both games, and there's noticeable delay between every action, making the combat painfully slow. But even Platinum had its issues, as it kept some annoying bits in like the depleting HP bar, something that is shown in this demonstration video made by Yzoru. It's definitely aged better than Diamond and Pearl, though even it has flaws. In my opinion, whether a game should be remade or not mainly depends on how well it's aged. It's why we see Game Freak releasing remakes generation by generation. The titles released on older hardware would obviously be more outdated compared to something newer. The other benefit of remaking a game is that those who don't have access to the originals have a chance to experience a more modernized version of it. And sometimes there are multiple remakes because, as already mentioned, nostalgia sells. As of now, we've technically had 4 iterations of Kanto: Red, Fire Red, Let's Go, and the post-game of Gold and Heart Gold. Let's take a look at the Nintendo DS's lineup of Pokemon titles. It has one of the biggest libraries of mainline games. Generation 4 with Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, the Generation 3 remakes, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and Generation 5, Black, White, and their sequels. There's no point to remake Heart Gold and Soul Silver since they're already remakes, and while Black and White are my favorite Pokemon games, I'd say that Heart Gold, Soul Silver are objectively the best games in the series and have aged extremely well. This brings us to the last generation on the Nintendo DS, Generation 5. Black and White completely revamped the graphics and gameplay for the Nintendo DS. It perfected the mixture of 2D sprites with 3D models, giving locations such as Castelia City and Sky Arrow Bridge proper scale. One of the best parts of Generation 5 had to be the fully animated battle sprites, which unfortunately was short-lived as this was the last generation on the DS, and Game Freak would move forward to 3D models for X and Y. Pokemon Black and White included everything: an immersive story, compelling characters, and a good amount of post-game content. Not to mention the battles playing out way faster, whether it be the text, attack animations, weather effects, or the HP bar. And the music is some of the best in the whole series. On occasions, I'd replay the entire game just to experience the adrenaline of battling N in the final showdown, following with Ghetsis and his overpowered Hydreigon. And this was the first generation to not have a third game. Instead, they released a sequel to Black and White, something that had never been done before. I mean, technically, Gold and Silver are kind of sequels, like they take place after the events of Red and Green, all that stuff, but like they weren't advertised as sequels. Before this generation, third games were a way to add content or improvements to a more updated version of the other two. But Black and White didn't really need it, and the sequel that did come out was really good. When people ask me what my favorite games are, I kind of just lump Generation 5 together as a whole because the sequels give you everything which made Black and White great, and then some. Following this, the series continued with Generations 6 and 7 on the Nintendo 3DS. And then we have Sword and Shield, Game Freak's first mainline Pokemon titles on a home console, that being the Nintendo Switch. So at this moment, we're at the halfway point when it comes to Generations getting remade. And it's a point where I think Game Freak should stop. Generation 5 perfected Pokemon games on the Nintendo DS with its revamped battle system and improved graphics. Generation 6 are the first games on the Nintendo 3DS. In my opinion, X and Y are some of Pokemon's weakest mainline games, but in all honesty, they haven't aged that bad. Especially since it was Game Freak's first attempt at a fully 3D experience. Then we have Generation 7 with Sun and Moon, which later got the enhancements Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. I highly doubt we'll be seeing remakes of those games. And that brings us to the current generation. One of the biggest arguments against not remaking any more Pokemon games is accessibility, mostly for the case of Generation 5 since it is a DS game. The consumer-friendly answer would be to add a library of DS Virtual Console games to the Switch and include Black and White as playable games. But let's be honest, even if they should stop the remakes after Generation 4, they probably won't, especially if it makes them money. Releasing remakes gives Game Freak time to work on the next generation titles while still having something to release. My main point in this video was explaining why nothing else needs the remake treatment. The Nintendo DS games were the last ones which feel outdated, but by the end of its life cycle, they managed to perfect the formula with Generation 5. In conclusion, I'm very excited to get my hands on the Diamond and Pearl remakes, and I'm very interested in what becomes of Legends Arceus. If I do another Pokemon video, it will be on my thoughts and opinions of that game because I do have a lot to say. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed, then please consider subscribing as it does help the channel. I've been NintendoBlackCrisis, and I will see you all next time.